Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this Thursday night in-depth ag forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. We're going to start off here by just rewinding the clock a little bit. And first of all, I wanted to apologize. My professional microphone is packed away. I'm in the Cornhusker Hotel here in Lincoln, Nebraska this evening, getting ready to go home. And so I apologize if the sound quality is a little different than normal, but I got to get this weather information out to you. Now, you've been watching an animation from 2 years ago on Labor Day. And this is what the wind field looked like on that day as brutally cold air and extremely windy conditions rolled right down here through the Central Plains up against this front. This was also the day where we saw incredibly strong winds that kind of ripped across parts of the Pacific Northwest, taking those wildfires and pushing them through Oregon to the west from the east. This was an incredibly devastating event that happened here. Just as a reminder, on that Labor Day, the temperature drop that occurred here in some places was over 40 degrees in a very short amount of time, and it was just one of those Labor Days I will never, ever forget. Well, this Labor Day might be forgettable for a lot of reasons. It's going to be quite warm across a big section of the country, and it'll be hot in the west and hot in the northern plains, getting back into Montana and throughout the Intermountain West, but cooler under cloud cover and some rain down here south. And these changes we've been talking about across the southern plains and in the lower Mississippi River Valley over to the southeast are going to be important. So let's dig into this, okay? Here's our latest drought monitor change map. So we got a new map today from the drought monitor, and I look back over the last 12 weeks to really just kind of let it settle in where the driest conditions really started to build in, because some of the recent heavy rains we saw along the Red River into Arkansas and that have hit down here in Louisiana and Mississippi did hit some of those drier places. And the forecast pulls in a lot more moisture into Texas, into the lower parts of the Mississippi River Valley very soon. So the newest map, let's just take you back to the latest change map. This is what we just saw. We've seen improvement in Texas, albeit from some extremely heavy rainfall. Now, the overall map, the newest one, looks something like this. And if we can click on that, there we go. This is the newest map we've got as of September 1st. And some of the big questions are, is this fall going to continue the drought pattern? Are we going to see relief from this over this upcoming winter? And I want to get to some of those answers in this video and in the next few. But we just finished a month, so let's go back and take a look at what August delivered in terms of precipitation ranks. There were several reporting districts in Nebraska, in Kansas, even parts of Colorado and northern Oklahoma that were seeing a top 10 driest. In fact, 3 different districts in through here having their driest August on record. We've been extremely dry in the northwest. We've been dry in the northeast and pockets throughout the Corn Belt, getting back up into the northern plains. But with an active southwest monsoon, the stalled out frontal boundaries that have delivered so much rainfall down here, as we head toward the peak of this hurricane season and the second half of it, we are very vulnerable to flooding down here in the lower Mississippi River Valley. So this is a map we've really got to take in here, thinking about this upcoming forecast. When you think about current soil moisture values, you can really still pick out those areas that if they continue to be dry and warm, the crop is going to finish very fast, and we're not going to have the moisture that could be used at the very end to fill things out. I'm thinking specifically about this part of the western and central Corn Belt overall. But the flooding rains down south are going to continue to be a major problem. On the temperature side of things, this is how August's average temperatures played out. For the most part, cooler than normal through the heartland of the country down into the southeast, but it was hot in New England, hot in Florida, and everywhere that you see the number 1 here in the western United States set a new record for the month of August. But I got asked a great question the other day at the Farm Progress Show about what the overnight low temperatures have looked like. So instead of just showing you August, I'd like to actually show you all the way back from June 1st all the way until this morning. And what we see here is a lot of the country saw very warm overnight lows throughout the last couple of months. And this has been important to understand what this has done to some of the crops. And then the tools I release every morning, my videos, you can actually, for any individual location, see how many days you spent over 90. You can see how many nights you spent with the temperature over 70, just as some context there. Now, where this forecast is going, let's take a look this afternoon, just as the sun was starting to set here over the Atlantic. And if I just take you back throughout the day today, big storms in the southeast. This was all cloud cover left over from the storms that came through Nebraska last night, but we still see storms through Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas. And we're going to see more of those storms in the coming days. But you can see as I kind of rock back and forth the flow of the atmosphere. A large ridge sitting in this area, and you can also see in the northwest some of the wildfire smoke that continues here to degrade the air quality. Now, as we think about where this forecast is going, I got to take you right back to where we left off in this morning's report. This is the new 12Z European model data, and we're looking at vorticity. Now, vorticity is spin in the atmosphere. And wherever you can take cyclonic spin, which we've colored, and move it to an area where there's either less or none or anticyclonic spin, the atmosphere leads to rising motion. Now, I'm watching several pieces, the first of which is actually sitting right here. As we just play this out through Friday into Saturday, there's a little short wave, a little vortmax here that gets pulled right over parts of Illinois, out of Oklahoma. That's the first piece. It gets dragged into this trough that's going through parts of Ontario. Look at how this flow is. But the bigger ridge that's sitting here, it's almost a 6,000 meter ridge, is really what's keeping the heat on. A shortwave trough by Saturday cuts into parts of Oregon and sweeps quickly over the northern tier of the United States around that ridge. And what's most important is the difference in where this trough goes next Monday. Now, if you saw my morning report, that trough was getting absorbed and cutting off into a low here in the European model, an upper level low. It's now abandoned that. It's now pushed that trough farther to the east and unlinked these two. See, they were originally orbiting around one another. They're not doing that anymore. Now, as that approaches next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we also have to watch this and this. I'm telling you, the pattern is quite complicated. This is a tropical system coming off of Mexico, and the latest European model wants to sweep that through the Baja and then pull it over Mexico and have it interact. See it coming around like this, have it interact with this much deeper trough that's sitting here. And by the way, this deep trough is as deep as it is now because of a typhoon in the Pacific. All of it's linking together to amplify the pattern, such that by the time we get out there to like the 8th, 9th, and 10th, this trough is going to sweep through and possibly initiate a big fall storm system in the Canadian prairie stretching through the middle part of the United States. And while that's going on, you can also see that maybe there's a tropical system to be discussing about 9 days out from now. So what's the difference? Well, we stitch it all together, and this is what you get. Over the next 10 days, open Gulf moisture, a lot of storms stretching from Texas through the lower Mississippi River Valley into the southeast. In this morning's model runs, that upper level cutoff low was dragging a lot of that moisture into Illinois, and it no longer is. So if you've been paying close attention right here in the I-states at the forecast, it went dramatically drier this afternoon as that moisture now moves over toward New England. But what we're going to watch is this trough sweeping through on the 8th, 9th, and 10th, possibly initiating a storm system that rips right through the mid part of the country at the the beginning of the second week of the month. So this is a very, very active time period. You pull in one tropical system here, another one from there, and we've got plenty to be looking at. Now, I want to talk to you about this one first, because this afternoon's model runs, in fact, wait a second, there it is. This afternoon's model runs, we're really kind of hinting at, there we can see a little closer, at most of the ensemble members taking it out to open ocean. But there's kind of a growing concern, not only in the European model, but also with the GFS, that there could be a more likely path pulling this back over the Baja into Mexico. And where it ends up is in Texas. That's one of the pieces we're going to talk about in just a few moments. The second one, if we go back here, is what these Atlantic systems are doing. Now, it's only very few model runs that want to take what's left of this would-be tropical system and push it toward the southeast. Most keep it out to open ocean. Same thing with the system that's following it here. And don't forget, we did name today, or yesterday, let's see if this will reload. There it is. This is Tropical Depression 5. It is also going to stay out to open ocean. So we've got several moving pieces that are going to come together, and it's going to be altered by the eventual track of this typhoon that is near Taiwan. You see, the latest forecast graphics are now taking that much more quickly to the north and pulling it into the jet stream level flow. So now, I know I've been going fast with this. I'm a bit excited. This is kind of neat to see these things come together, but let me get you down to the end of this, okay? This is what the flow across the whole planet looks like by the 8th of September. Now, what I want you to see is the size of this ridge is being aided by the fact that that tropical system is going to push it farther to the north. And it's setting up 1, 2 troughs out ahead of it. And this is the trough that we expect to sweep through around the 8th, 9th, and 10th that could draw on a lot of Gulf moisture and really ignite a system in the midsection of the country. Meanwhile, we're going to have just open transport of moisture all throughout this area. I know it's small on your screen here, but that's the area we're going to be seeing this through. So you're tying together 3 different tropical systems with a highly amplified jet stream pattern, and it's really going to mix things up as we go forward, resulting again in this being the latest 10-day precipitation outlook. Now, until this all happens, much of the Midwest is going to be drier. The southern part of the United States is going to be wetter. We're going to really push the crop along toward maturity here across the Midwest and the plains, whereas things are going to be quite difficult down south with how much rain we're expecting. But you just put all these pieces together and we see several things in motion that right now are coming together to give you this pattern. Now, from here, I want to show you what the 15-day precipitation anomaly forecast looks like from the European. So now we just kind of put it all into one, and what we see is one major system coming through again on the 9th, 10th time frame through the midsection of the country. Before that gets here, dry in this area, very dry in this area. The heat's in the west. It spreads back into the midsection of the country, and it's drier until that system gets there. But to the south, I do see a lot of open Gulf transport, a lot of moisture here, lingering frontal boundaries, and we get a lot of rain out of that. Now, before I go any further with the details, I'd like to stretch you back out and show you the bigger picture. And it's the same picture I've been showing you now for what feels like 4 months. The trade winds across the Pacific maintain their strength. The westerly wind bursts, a part of the negative Indian Ocean dipole, maintain their strength. And overall, through the beginning of September, La Niña will be the dominant factor. And as you can see here, the models just continue to keep the cooler water we've been observing, which is what you're seeing on this map, going. There's a lot of warmth in the North Pacific and in the North Atlantic. And that's what's helping keeping the jet stream with less momentum than normal, which gives us those bigger waves overall. But what we need to see is what this manifests itself in terms of precipitation through September and the beginning of October. And that's where I get to the brand new European data. So the European model released this afternoon shows us that over the next 45 days, the likelihood of seeing more dry days here than wet is high. Now, as I always do, let's give you the caveats to this. First of all, we do have one system coming through, so this is not a no rain situation. It's just saying more drier days than wet. If it perfectly verifies, it's a very good finish to the end of the season. Despite the drought that's already in place, we need to get the crop out of the ground. So this would be a good finish. But I'll let you know that through the front half of September, I only see one big storm system coming through. And that one, again, is coming through on like the 9th and the 10th. In the second half of September, though, I'm going to call this into question. Because if we see a bit of a change in the jet stream flow, bringing more troughs over the Rocky Mountains, we'll see more of these systems. But as it stands, the model's not picking up on that. What could go wrong? Well, if we end up developing, and this could happen, a big ridge that sits over Tennessee and Kentucky, haven't seen it all year, but if it does form, we will get a lot of very wet weather that comes through at the wrong time to deliver a lot of precipitation into the Midwest. It also causes problems in the lower Mississippi River Valley. We also have the tropical systems that could be forming as we work our way toward the middle or the peak and then the second half of the season. No one's really backed off too much on their longer range forecast, suggesting the second half of the hurricane season could be active. We've already lost some of the really dry conditions that have been in the Atlantic that really hampered a lot of the early season stuff. So with that change, we could start to see more activity. But this is it. This is overall the broader picture. And it's echoed by the new data that was out from the CPC. This is their newest update released yesterday for their temperatures and precipitation through September. And a point I've been iterating in my morning reports, I don't have any indication yet of some sort of untimely frost event that comes out of the Canadian prairie. It appears, at least through the front half of this month, that we're going to be seeing quite a bit of warmer weather penetrating that area as with time here. Now, I'll tell you again, a lot of the dry conditions you see here that they're keeping for the whole month of September, a lot of this is early month dryness. We could see a much more active time period going into the end of September, as indicated by some of the analog years and what we're seeing from some of the long-range models. I do agree with this being wetter. It's certainly going to be wetter the first week and a half of September, but with tropical season approaching, there's a lot of evidence for that. Now, I just want to reiterate a point we brought up on Monday. The strength of this La Niña, there is still mounting evidence that once we get through fall and at the beginning of winter, that we could be talking about a fading La Niña, and it could fade relatively quickly. And I'm going to keep you updated on that with each report. I just want to let you know that some of the stuff I looked at this week still suggested it. Now, come back to the near-term forecast before I give you an international update. Our current all-hazards weather map shows the presence of that ridge in the west. We have red flag warnings for Montana, northern Idaho, Washington and Oregon, and northern California. We have heat advisories in this area and excessive heat warnings that run from southern California through the Central Valley of California. When we look out here at what this pattern is going to do to our precipitation, I got to start you off with the high-res models. Now, if you remember, a couple moments ago, I talked about that little shortwave that was right here. Watch what the high-res NAM does with it. Pulls it through Oklahoma, into Missouri on Friday, and then right into Illinois. And at that point, it's going to meet with a frontal boundary we've been watching very carefully on Friday, slicing right here from Lake Superior all the way through Nebraska into Kansas. Now, all the while that's occurring, or these two things are occurring, very hot in the west, isolated storms could pop here in the west, especially in the northwest, but a lot of scattered storms out ahead of this. Well, that front sweeps through, cooling things off temporarily in the northern plains before it just opens back up to heat again and brings in a chance for some storms. Now you can see that by Saturday night, that frontal boundary is lingering right in through here, which means we're going to see increased storm activity not only here in the eastern Corn Belt, but through the lower Mississippi River Valley, connecting up with the southeast over to the south. There you can also see the effect of that next trough coming in. See it bringing in those chances of storms there on Saturday? Looking right up here. All right, we play this on through Saturday night, and now you see the issues we're talking about with the storm activity happening in this area. But from here, I want to flip over to the European. So we've already seen through Thursday into Friday, there's the front Friday night. And as we go forward into Saturday and Sunday, the Gulf stays open here, the boundary lingers there, high pressure builds in behind it, trying to push it south, but doesn't do so well. So what we see is going from Sunday morning into Sunday afternoon evening, a lot of scattered storms in this area. But the biggest change is on Monday. You see, the previous run this morning kept that upper level trough right over Illinois, delivering a lot of rainfall. It's now east, so the moisture goes with it from Louisiana into New York. So this is now Monday, getting into Tuesday and Wednesday. See that? That's where the new focal point will be. At this point, I've now got the operational European seeing where that low will be, that tropical low. And what we saw earlier was it pulls it across Mexico. And at the same time that that system goes here, that broad trough, remember that data I've been giving you around the 9th or 10th, sweeps in through the northwest and initiates a broad area of low pressure that develops right in the middle part of the country. And we could be seeing a sizable storm system on possibly the 10th. Could it deliver rain to Nebraska, where I am and they are very dry? It is a possibility. But we are way out here in the forecast, and I'm just really relaying to you what the latest data are showing. Okay, putting all that together, here is the next 10 days of total accumulated precipitation. Now, do you see the front interacting with the little cutoff low? It's a short wave coming right through Oklahoma and Arkansas into southern Missouri. There it spreads the rain early next week into New England. See it? And then watch right here. The European pulls that moisture, see it, right in here across Mexico into Texas. This is next Friday and Saturday. That's what we're rocking over here. And that's the next system and the one from the tropics. Now, does the GFS see the same thing? Similar on the moisture through Tuesday and Wednesday, a little farther east and south, but watch right down here now. It also, can you see it? Watch right here. Next Wednesday, Thursday, attempts to pull whatever's coming out of the East Pacific right over Texas. And at that same time, it is also bringing in that low on the 9th. So we've got a lot to be watching to see evolve over the weekend. And remember, this is all very delicate. This is made worse by the typhoon in Japan. So see how we're linking this all together? Okay, are there any model differences you need to know? Well, if you saw my morning report, you'll know that we saw a major wet anomaly in the European. It was much wetter. Now the models are closer in alignment with what's happening here with the Eastern Corn Belt. The GFS is way more aggressive here on the rain from the tropical system. The European's a little bit farther to the east. The European is now much wetter over New England as well. So we're seeing some of these differences over the next 7 days. All right, let's take it from there out into week 2, starting on the 9th. There's the trough. It's in the ensemble as well. And as we play this out, that sweeps through, but the models wash everything of usefulness out into week 2. So this is why, as we get into the second part of September, there's a lot of question marks. And one of the big reasons for the models not able to capture any dominant signals, the tropics. The tropical interactions are really messing with all the ensemble members. So we're in a time period of low predictability. But this is the week 2 forecast from the European model, now wetter in here. And if I flip over and show you the GFS, this is the GFS outlook. At least there's consistency down here across the south. On the temperature side of things, now we come back to what we started with. We already saw today's highs. Friday, look at the colder air coming in here. Almost a 30-degree drop in temperatures in some places. The heat is still very much in the west, and the hotter air is out ahead of the system. That cold front slides through on Saturday, and watch right behind it. Heat builds right back in on Sunday. So no break for the Pacific Northwest, the West Coast, and even in parts of Montana. And the southern plains stay cool. Well, the far southern plains stay cool. So does the lower Mississippi River Valley with clouds and precipitation. But notice the heat that stays in place here compared to normal, that's going to really push this crop ahead fast. And like I normally do, let's look at that 5-day sliding window from the European ensemble. What's important to note here is that pattern shift that could happen after the big storm system on the 10th and 11th. Because toward the end of the month, you see how the models are kind of losing that signal for where that heat's going to be. Could this initiate a more active storm track? It's possible for the second half of September. I'll just have to keep watching it to see if that actually evolves. Okay, I do want to show you some international things. Start off in South America. The newest 46-day outlook from the European continues with the theme of wetter conditions and a faster plant in the northern parts of Brazil. This is consistent with an inactive MJO, a dominant La Niña, and the behavior of the trade winds. So this would, if it verifies, and this takes you out to the middle of October, if this verifies, South America will be in the fields fast. What we must watch for is if the monsoon, which could start right on time, backs off in mid to late October. That would force a replant in a lot of places because of poor germination issues. But far southern Brazil, Uruguay, and Argentina continue to see the models showing drought risk down south. So that is something we're going to have to first of all watch. Asia. If I show you this, look at southern China where we've been struggling with drought. Along the Yangtze River and south, the models are continuing to keep things exceptionally dry there going forward, while the Indian monsoon is going to be extremely active late in the season. September is the end of the monsoon, and it is still cranking, causing major problems with flooding here. And if I show you one last place, it would be Australia. Going into their spring, most of the continent is expecting above average precipitation, and they have been wet throughout their entire winter. So there's a lot of water to be used in Australia, and there's not any risk of early season drought there. The drought risk going forward is primarily what we're dealing with in the U.S., the issues in southern Brazil and Argentina, and as I showed you a few moments ago, how the crop will finish down here in the southern 2/3 of China. So we've got the international outlook up there. We got a lot of things to watch over the weekend. I'll keep you up to date on any changes. And for those of you that get my morning reports, I'll fill you in tomorrow morning on any significant model changes. Have a good weekend. Thanks.